Good morning, everybody. Isaac. Good morning, everybody. John Spielke here for GAI Insights, and we are doing the GAI news briefing with a small crew this morning, but an interesting set of articles that go everywhere from what kind of new diffusion training models we have to new drug discovery in the context of generative AI capabilities. And today we have our host, David DeLallo. David, go for it.
All right. Just 1 second. It's giving me a weird message when I want to slide share today. So 1 second. Let me get my slides up for us. And here we go. It's being resistant. It knows it's a holiday. Okay, that's not the first article. This is. Okay, so our first article, AI 21 Labs has a model that can handle, I think it was 140,000 tokens of context. What do we think about this one, Adam?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I consider this optional news. It's trying to position itself as being bigger than some, and it points out some of the smaller ones in comparing itself. But I was trying to remember the number. Claude 3 Opus is quite large as well. I think it might be this big, if not bigger. And it's really just someone trying to show that they can compete and make a point about the fact that context window is super important. But I consider it optional news.
Yeah, I believe that they also said that this was, is this the one? I know we had a couple of releases, but I think it's not available for commercial use yet.
Yeah, that's right. They said it's still in beta, and for enterprise, it would be a few weeks before something even comes to market. So
right.
Yeah.
this is an announcement.
Yeah, they focus on the reason they're saying they're releasing this into the public domain is because the architecture of the model has a combination of 3 different types of models, and that is important because it's faster and it keeps this context window bigger. So they're saying they please experiment with it, and it will land us better results. But I agree with Adam, it's optional.
Yeah, they claim it's the first at-scale state-space model commercially. So obviously in combination with transformers. So yeah, optional, interesting, optional.
Yeah. Interesting paradigm to combine those two. It has something we haven't seen before. And I just did a quick look. Yeah, Claude is 200K, which is even larger, and can go up to 1 million. So they're but more to Luda's point, which is a good one. They're using it in an innovative way to try and speed things up, and we should just keep our eyes on it because it might make a big difference.
Yeah. And can I just say that, with image generators available, and I know some institutions are worried about using them because of copyright issues, like this image right here, I have seen on about 30 articles. I actually used a revised version of it myself on an article about a year ago. Can we please come up with some new images for these articles with all that is possible right now? Okay, my little rant on that. All right, so next we have Microsoft addressing soon to be addressing. This is not something that's been released yet. Again, the hallucinations and safety issues with our generative AI technology. Luda, what do you think about this one? Sorry, lost myself there.
I was between optional and important. It's a product announcement and it's not released yet, but it's given that it's Microsoft and it's handling a really tough 3 issues. I think that is worth putting it as important. It's a very brief read, and it's important for people to be aware that this is coming. So what they're after is to prevent, or at least make the developers aware that there's potential jailbreak or insertion into the prompt that might be malicious. They also came up with the metrics to evaluate the groundedness, or whatever they call it, meaning the no hallucinations or the metric for hallucinations, and they will automatically monitor that and highlight it to the developer, and monitoring the application in real time. So all these three are pretty critical issues. And strategically for Microsoft, ahead of OpenAI, doing it by themselves is actually a great move. So I think it's worth important.
All right. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I was kind of where Luda is. I was leaning more toward optional, but yeah, I mean, you have the market leader putting out necessary tools that are helpful. It is a product announcement, always gives me a little bit of pain to promote product announcements, but
especially when they announce that you can't use it yet. Like now we're getting really crazy. There's so much pressure to release news. We're getting before it's well before it's actually news.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I can't remember from the article. It's not available. Is that correct?
Right. Not available.
Yeah.
And
okay.
probably this metric is tricky. So
Yeah.
it might take them some time to actually get it together. I'm okay with optional. It's just I feel that if somebody says, well, Microsoft is going to be doing it and our reader is not aware, that's not good.
Yeah. I mean, I could argue that we could call it important and say, well, we know that it's not available yet, just important to know that it's coming, right?
Yeah.
So help is on the way.
I don't know.
I was voting optional as well. For the reasons stated, but at the same time, I can see why, in the bigger picture, in terms of the issues it presents and what Microsoft's doing to address them, it's probably important for our executive leaders to be wrapping their heads around those issues and having the awareness of them, more so even than specifically this news from Microsoft about the Azure platform.
Yeah, so remember just yesterday we were talking about the metric to evaluate hallucinations, the SAFE, that was a research paper. So what I see is there's really important efforts that are going on to try to narrow into that and do it right.
Paul, can you mute? You have background. Thank you.
There we go. Paul brings us classical music in the morning. Awesome. I love
it. Very nice. Get that brain stimulated and going. All right. I'm going to say important, but we're going to put all kinds of caveats on this. It's
all right. Important
because it's not available yet. All right. This was an exciting one. Obviously, antibiotic resistance is a huge problem.
Yeah.
In this article, 5 million people die from that every year. Really cool. John, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I put it as I started as essential, and they had the, Luda was on my shoulder saying, "Bah, this isn't for everybody." So I put it down to important. Yeah, look, it's amazing. This thing, Stanford managed to, in conjunction with the folks in Canada, have managed to create this model. Before they only had 100,000, 100,000 molecules they were looking at, and this thing by itself, just generated 25,000, and then they're able to. They went to Ukraine to see which were, they could actually make, which is kind of weird. I didn't know Ukrainians were leaders in molecule development, but whatever. And now they have something that's worked in mice, going to put in humans to deal with this really horrible, antibiotic resistant bacterium, AB, and I think it's amazing how quickly, how accurately, the very fact of quote unquote hallucinations, that is actually good because they can generate molecules and see if they work. I think that's kind of cool. The size of the search space is 10 to the 60th. That's a hard number to think about.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't. You pretty much can't.
Yeah, I can't. Anyway, big number, BFN, big friggin' number, right? I mean, so, so I think it's important. It's important because they went from start to finish pretty quickly, and they're already in mice, and this is a huge area. I mean, my goodness, you pick the lock on this, you got some mega drugs.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great story. And what I love is the fact that, you know, so much I feel like we find people that are trying to make generative AI do things that it's not really that good at, and then they get disappointed, right? And here you see where, as in, creative industries and such, the fact that it can make things up in a lot of instances is good. And they note in here how they've set it up to make things up in a controlled way so that you can actually make the compound that it's making up, because sometimes in the past it was making up things that weren't physically able to make. But I mean, I think it's amazing that we can use it for big problems like this.
Yeah. Another cool thing is that they said it's teaching them about biology, because they come up with these molecules, then they find out that they work, and then they figure out, well, how does it work?
Right.
And, so it's, I don't know, it's this magical mirror coming back on biological processes.
So we've come across this before where something is important for the world, but maybe not for our audience. I was going to consider this optional, because unless you're specifically in that field or specifically in something related to it, which I would guess the majority of our AI leaders are not, this is great for the world, but what are they going to do with it? Like, they're busy and they're coming to us for the information that they need to know to get on with their jobs. And this isn't one of them, honestly. So I'll say optional.
Right. So I was with Adam, John. So Ludo behind you was optional, not important. And the reason is we have reviewed. I mean, I understand the humongous value of this particular effort. So for the world, it's humongous value, but for our audience and for the fact that there's no news, we have reviewed this. Remember, NASA researchers generated materials that could replace lithium, and then they put the robot to actually make them, and they did make them, and it was like from I forget, 6 months from the inception to the prototype of the battery. We've talked about it. It's there. It's happening. It's use cases that are real. So I would put optional on this, unfortunately.
Yeah, they haven't done something. This is going to be relevant for a ton of people. Then just, policy-wise inside, right? I'm going to make the case for, at Harvard Business School, there used to be 4 grades. There used to be, low pass, satisfactory, high pass, and outstanding. And they got rid of outstanding. And outstanding was discretionary, and they could do whatever with it. And it turned out that outstanding was the best predictor of future success of people in organizations, which is really too bad that they yanked it out of there. So I think there's certain, I hear you about, if I think of the great gray average that we're going after our AI leader and say, well, but every once in a while, there's just cool stuff they ought to know about, either as an example or just to inform them. And this, I disagree with you, Luda. This is much more consequential than a new material. There's a good chance there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us on this thing. There's a good chance one of us is going to die from one of these bad boys when we get into a hospital. So anyway, I think it's much, I would make the case for important as something an AI leader should know. Super practical example.
Okay. I can live with important.
Yeah, I'm going to come down with John and say important to know about a cool use case, big for humanity. And again, I think instructive on when you put generative AI onto problems where it is good at, it can be amazing, and stop trying to say hallucinations are always bad, as Paul had written in a blog post several months ago. Okay, let's move on to the release of Grock 1.5. I just have to say right off the bat, you open sourced the previous version right before you released something that was better. Elon Musk in action. Okay, so Adam, how did you feel about this?
Still optional. The Grock News continues to be optional. They have limited access through the API. This isn't relevant to enterprise. At the moment, the only way you can access it when it becomes available soon on X, which it isn't yet, is by subscribing to his platform and using it on it. I actually jumped on through I think it was through my PC today. On my phone, it said it was still Grock 1.0, but through the browser, it said, I asked it and it said, I'm Grock 1.5, I'm the new version. And I started peppering it with some questions to test it, and I wasn't that impressed, honestly. A bigger context window, that's up there with our article earlier today, A121 Labs, in terms of the size. So that's notable. But literally, I was having it do multiple choice questions, and after one, it went back to just asking me questions, not giving me multiple choices. And I said, give me multiple choice answers every time to choose from. It said, got it, no problem. And then after one more question, it forgot again. What I have seen, though, is that it's falling between Claude 3 Opus and GPT-4 in terms of for programming, for human eval, which I think is the one for programming. Yeah, you can see there GPT-4 is a 67%, and they don't have Claude 3 Opus on there. Yeah, they do. And Opus is an 85. And so it is significant. It's getting better. I can't imagine a developer who's in an enterprise environment going over to their Twitter app and coding in it. So this is still very optional news for our target audience.
Yeah.
Okay, I 100% agree, and it's not just because Elon Musk drives me crazy, and I, for the most part, boycott X as a result. But I agree with you. Anybody else have anything to say on this one, or are we optional and move on? All right. Our next piece of news is about a slightly different model for creating images than the one that is popular today, which is diffusion. Paul, I had assigned this to you. What did you think? Or you can pass, because I know you were unsure whether you were going to.
Well, yeah, I'm going to have to take a Harvard HBS pass. I am unprepared. Thank you.
All right.
John, passing to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think this is kind of like Raft for images, right? We're talking about RAG the other day, and Raft. This is optional. This is the ability to do a more efficient kind of diffusion model through training, the CVDM model that they use, and so it basically helps them with restrictions on where to do the processing and what kind of image generation to create. The CVDM method seems to be better for more precise images. So it's not a picture of, something like you're doing, David, in your cartoon, but rather, my tumor. And it's good for, helping with precision microscopy when you get down below the size of the, I think it's 250 nanometers is the length of a wave of light. And, the reconstruction of images at a finer granularity than that, is helped by this stuff. So I'd give it optional, interesting, but certainly not something needed at the moment.
All right. Anybody else have any thoughts on this one?
No, optional.
Fun though, really interesting. Really interesting. I had until I read this article, I hadn't thought of the fact that the diffusion models, for me, the diffusion models are for images what tokenization is for words, and that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
But I'm sure that was obvious to lots of other people. It wasn't obvious to me. As my grandmother used to say to me, "Light dawns on Marblehead." There you go.
Okay.
The one thought I had was, think about applications of this the other direction, like as we look with telescopes outwards as well.
Yeah.
Right. It's some interesting stuff, but optional.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it will have a massive impact on other fields. No question about it. It's a great advance, and I agree with John. It's very fascinating, and it's great. It's just for our audience. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it, so that's why it's optional.
Yeah.
There we go.
All
right.
We've got one more. We've got a funding raise by Mr. Kosla's company here, or Kosla backed anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think here? I forget, who did I assign this one?
Me.
Luda.
First, can I just note that I love the branding of the capital, Mr. Kosla.
Yeah.
Well, but this is true. He's well known and does good bets. So this is good. I put an important on this article.
Oh,
The reason, and let me explain. It's a raise announcement, so in that sense, it's optional. The reason I'm thinking important is this is a massive issue for our audience, and that is protection of data, regardless of where it is in the cloud, which geography, and protecting it well. So, and it seems like this particular company, the reason Khosla put in more money, it's an extension of Series B, not the B itself. It's an extension, and the extension is based to growth of the growth of the revenue. So they are getting traction, and they're getting good traction. I don't know what the base is, but they're saying 250 some percent in increase in revenue. So it's a very important issue. This is a company that is doing well in this space, and that if you need to be in China, if you need to be in various places, that there is technology that will protect your data. So, and this is great. So that's why important.
all right. Any challenges or further commentary? I see John coming off mute.
Yeah, I agree with Luda. Look, when I was over at PwC, one of the big mistakes they made is they went for Google Cloud. Now they've gone back to Microsoft because when they were operating in China and a number of places in Europe, especially Germany, it's very hard if you don't have some kind of federated on-premise solution that then can be integrated as a whole. So yeah, makes sense to me. Plus, the notion, I like the notion of you have to really be planful about what data you let into your model, because if you're going to do, if you're going to comply with the right to forget and things like that, legislation in the EU, for example, it's going to be hard once you get in the model, these 9-layer models and so forth, finding, okay, what piece of John Sviokla is in that recommendation? Good luck finding that. And it's only because tort law is not bigger in Europe that they have protection. I mean, if you take the tort lawyers from the US and tort law over there, you'd start suing on the basis of that stuff. You could never figure this out in these models. So I think you want to be able to say, hey, look, we had a guard at the door with our Skyflow, data approach. And John, your information is not in our model. Don't worry about it.
Good point. What do you think, Adam?
I was on the fence between optional and important. The more I look into it and the more I think about it, I think it is important. I was on their website, and if you go to solutions by compliance, you see GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, SOC 2.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. They're addressing some really big regulatory issues in the space, and personal identifiable information is a big challenge that needs to be looked at and addressed, and using AI to help solve that with, what do they call it? Not homomorphic, but heteromorphic encryption. It's something to be aware of. And I think for a lot of people out there, even if they don't go with this solution, understanding that these solutions are being built is important to know.
Yeah.
All right. We have important across the board.
Finally.
Consensus.
To the end of our day here, what did we end up? We ended up with Microsoft's announcement of a future solution for hallucinations, etc. That's important. We said that the drug resistance
use case.
Wow. So it's Friday. I'm fumbling over myself. Important that we have used generative AI to help with that issue of drug-resistant bacteria.
Right.
And Grock, we continue to put in the optional category. And obviously the one we just discussed was important as well. John, I was going to ask Paul what was on for Weekly Learning Lab because I'm not aware for Monday. Do you know?
I don't. I was counting on him too. And then he ghosted us. So there you go. All right. So there's a mystery guest on the Monday Learning Lab on Easter Monday, for those of you who celebrate Easter. And it's weird to say Happy Good Friday. You don't really say that, but whatever. Good Friday to the rest of you and the Easter season. It's great being with everyone. Anything else urgent or important for our audience here? All right.
Have a good
sayonara. Go ahead, David. Sorry.
I just said have a good weekend.
All right. Have a good weekend. Bye.
And bye.